Hey, day one listeners, welcome back to the show. I'm Caleb King, a software developer. And for this episode, I wanted to talk about 6 technologies I absolutely wasted my time learning when I was a young web developer. Let's get into it. Look, when I started web development, I wasted a lot of time trying to learn whatever technologies came in, an article, a tutorial, a YouTube video, whatever was new and shiny, I was looking at. And an industry with the ever-growing number of technologies, libraries, frameworks, being efficient with your learning is key. So whether you're a new web developer, maybe you already have some skin in the game, I wanted to put together this list because I either wasted my time learning something because I never got to use it in my professional career, or these are things that are no longer relevant at the time of this recording. Now, before we dive into the content, I just want to first say thank you all for the love and support y'all been showing us on the YouTube, the podcast, the website, everything in between. And just want to say, if you can hit that like, comment, and subscribe button, then you automatically enter for a chance to win a $25 Amazon gift card. And then what I can tell you, with the holidays coming up, we're going to have a few other big contests to hopefully not only reward the true day one supporters of the show, but get a bigger following, get the word out, and also give you guys some goodies in return. So if you can just do one of those things for me, I really appreciate it. Now back to the show. All right, so to kick off our list here, I'm going to be talking about, and I apologize in advance because there might be some developers out there who are going to hate me for this, but we're going to start up with Ruby on Rails. I felt like it was a complete waste of my time trying to learn Ruby on Rails. Ruby on Rails was big in the late 2000s. I mean, when I say I wasted months trying to learn it, the reason I started getting into Ruby on Rails, I think I was in my second year in my career. And to give you some context, I knew enough to be dangerous, but I didn't understand the whole ecosystem. You couldn't ask me to break down how our entire infrastructure worked at my company, but I could break down Java to some shape or form. And I looked at Rails because I had a buddy who had just started his startup, and he was just ranting and raving about Rails is amazing because I was able to do everything and in Ruby with this Rails framework. I mean, like, Caleb, if you just say within a framework, you can have your prototype done faster than anything you can do with your current tech stack. And really what I found is I didn't know Ruby, I didn't know Rails, so I had a huge learning curve. I was trying to go faster, ended up going slower, and I spent a lot of time trying to learn this language because I thought, hey, startups are using it, other organizations are getting to the point where they can sell their code bases for millions of dollars. And I can tell you, in my personal career, I've came across one company that has Rails code, and that Rails code wasn't even used. So Ruby on Rails was super hot, super popular, and I haven't seen it since. So that one falls in the category of, as much time as I spent learning it, it never benefited me professionally. Moving on to number 2, AngularJS. Not to be confused with Angular. AngularJS was replaced with Angular from versions 2 onward. So don't bother wasting your time learning AngularJS for this reason. You'll find very few companies using it today. It's pretty much legacy Angular. But I wanted to put this one on the list because I just think it's funny how they called it AngularJS. Recruiters don't always know all the details of a language, and this was one of those minute details where I could see a recruiter maybe missed a comma. They want you to know Angular and JavaScript, but it says AngularJS. You need to be able to call that out and understand, hey, are you asking me to work on legacy Angular? And then in terms of learn it on company time. Because unless you truly have a passion for this, I would imagine if you're going to learn Angular, you're going to work with the latest versions. And if you're in a situation where you feel like, hey, I'm kind of decent with something that is getting deprecated. It's not deprecated yet, but it's getting deprecated. Should I learn that deprecated technology to do my job? A lot of times I would say learn on the job, but don't go beyond that would be my advice. And it's simply due to the fact that it's like, are we growing your skill set? Because, you know, your career can be very long. So there's nothing wrong with learning legacy technologies, but if it doesn't benefit you in the job market, then I would just say probably there's better options out there. Which leads into number 3, JQuery. Guys, if I had to give you an analogy, a comparison, I feel like for me, jQuery, it would be like if somebody like your mom or dad came to you in 2021, it was like, hey, I'm getting Dogecoin. I'm so cool, right? Meanwhile, you're trying to buy all the SHIB that you can so you can be the next Shiba Inu millionaire. And what I'll tell you is that's how I felt with jQuery. It was a super popular, everybody knew it, everybody loved it. Younger developers always defaulted to it. Newer developers would tell you, hey, you should probably leverage one of these new frameworks, but then it could never actually show you the pros and cons of those frameworks or libraries. And did you know jQuery is still one of the most popular JavaScript libraries out there? And if you're a tech person, you probably cringe a little bit at me making that statement because it's popular, but it's not because of relevance. It's a technicality. jQuery is just old. 10, 15, 20-year-old websites still got jQuery on there. And the reason it's on this list is it was frustrating because I was coming into enterprise development. You see jQuery everywhere, and you were always told, hey, you need to know just enough jQuery to fix the bug, to fix the patch, or whatever the case is. But you also need to be able to understand how the state works. So when we move it over to React or Angular or something different, you have an idea like how the app functioned and the intent on how we structured it behind the scenes. And that was just frustrating because you knew this thing is everywhere and they are purposely trying to get rid of it. And you're seeing a lot of big tech companies, they shifted away from using jQuery just in favor of regular JavaScript. You don't even need React or Angular or something like that to get a lot of the stuff you can get done with jQuery, just with vanilla JavaScript, because the language has also improved. And coming in at number 4 is EmberJS. Now, yes, it's never been a better time to be a JavaScript developer. And EmberJS, I remember when it came out, to give you some context, I was really in between Angular 1, which was not what Angular's like today. React really wasn't there yet. It was still popular, but I think you were still using the create class in React. And nowadays you have hooks, so it's a way different development style and patterns. We were using Backbone at my current company, and I remember Ember had a really cool website. I felt like it had the cool logo, they had the docs, they had the blog, they were talking about the Ember ecosystem, the CLI, the pipeline, the routing, the data layer, and I just remember thinking to myself, man, this thing is going to be so cool, and it just never really caught on. I studied, I learned it, I played with different tutorials to try to learn different pieces of the framework in and out, and no place that I interviewed had it. Everybody who was considering a framework, hey, are we going to use Meteor? Are we going to use Backbone? It was always, oh, we're going to use Angular, we're going to use React. It got to a point where it wasn't even conversation. So anything that wasn't Angular or React, like, didn't even get mentioned. So I feel like Ember was great, and it still is. It's still out there today. It's still something you can use. Still has a lot of great features. But this one's on the list because I spent so much time learning this, and really to find no one, at least professionally, was using it. And that kind of bothered me because I thought it actually had a lot of potential, but for some reason it just couldn't have the same reach as some of the other languages. Which, oh, let me just clarify real quick. Ember, to me, the framework. The next one, number 5, is a programming language, which is PHP. Okay, Lord, give me strength. I'm about to do this. PHP isn't that bad. Let's just take a step back. If you guys know me, it's where I started. The LAMP stack, which is Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. That's how I built my first few websites, which landed me my first few freelancing jobs and then consulting. And I was a lot of WordPress stuff, but it was just the fact that I was able to go beyond the system admin dashboard and create plugins. And to create plugins, you have to understand WordPress, which meant you have to understand PHP. And I can't tell you, when I think of PHP now, it's just so funny how it's evolved and changed, because back in the day, it was the language of the web. Now, I feel like it's the lamest language. And I am so sorry if I offended any PHP developers. I say that with all due respect. PHP still dominates a lot of the internet, and it's just kind of crazy how technology like slowly moves over time. But when I think of making a web app, when I'm thinking of making anything for the web, I don't think PHP. I think JavaScript, which is why PHP made the list, because I spent so much time trying to learn this thing, trying to understand a LAMP stack, wrote horrible code. I mean, they wrote the clean code book because of the crap I was writing in PHP. And it's not the language. You can blame the language a little bit. It's not 100% the language fault. But PHP had its pros, has its cons. But nowadays, if you're trying to make something, I'm probably advising you to look at JavaScript. I'm probably telling you, just do it in Node, work with React, Angular if you need to, but you don't have to. And that's all you need, which leads into the last programming language and the last piece of list of technologies that I feel like I wasted time learning on. Before I tell you guys this last one, if you notice, the entire episode we've pretty much been talking about either a language, a framework, a library. And the last one is actually something new, which is Dino. Now, you guys know I love JavaScript, and I think JavaScript is truly like something that's just not going to go away anytime soon. So it's like a really good investment to learn JavaScript. Now, Dino came out, it's new, and it could be big in years to come. But what I want you to be careful of is don't fall for the hype just yet, because Dino, the perfect distraction of pretty much what I was constantly doing when I was earlier in my career. Something new came up, something looks great, it's supposed to be more performant, they made it learning all the lessons that they learned, it's whatever the new sales pitch is, you want to hop on board. And what I'll tell you is what you really need to do, focus on understanding the fundamentals and the basics. If you're year 1, 2, 3 and you're trying to get into Dino, I'm probably going to tell you you can do Dino for fun, but I would also make sure you know Node, because to understand Dino, there's pros and cons. You probably want to see how you used to do it, so you know these are things you no longer have to do, or we've replaced this process. That's the whole point of some of these newer things. It's supposed to be an iteration of something that wasn't broken necessarily, but needed improvement. So that's my short list of technologies I really wouldn't bother with today. Dino is probably the one exception, because I do want to build something in Dino, but it's just not on my immediate to-do list. There's just a lot of things I think I'd rather do first. For example, I'd rather play with Python and Go a little bit more in depth before I will hop on Dino. But yeah, again, if you guys like this episode, I could probably do another short list. This is only 6, and I've tried a lot of different things. We didn't even talk about mobile development for this episode. Ruby developers, PHP developers. If I offended you, I apologize. But if you like, comment, subscribe, you might get $25. That's the best I can do for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, but that's all I got for you. I'm out. Peace.